Back in the 19th century, two massive empires in Southeast Asia went to war over the land that lay between them. The opening shot was this huge invasion that should have been a slam dunk, a decisive victory, but instead, it just fell apart in the most spectacular way. Today, we're going to break down the Siamese Vietnamese War and figure out how one single disastrous battle completely changed the course of an entire region.
All right, let's dive right into the moment of crisis. The year is 1834. It's January, and we're at the Vam Nao River in what is now southern Vietnam. A gigantic Siamese invasion force is literally one battle away from capturing its ultimate prize, Saigon. But in a shocking turn of events, the whole thing is about to just collapse. So just picture this scene. The commanders of Siam's Grand Fleet are completely paralyzed with fear. Their leader actually has to row out to them himself to try and rally them, but they just refuse to move. Some of them even drop their anchors again right after pulling them up. I mean, this was a total breakdown of command, and it was about to doom the entire invasion.
So the big question is, right? How could an invasion this massive, this well-planned, fall apart so spectacularly? Well, to get that, we have to look at the bitter rivalry between these two regional superpowers, a rivalry whose tensions were about to just explode into open war. So for years, you've got these two major powers, Siam under the Chokri dynasty and Vietnam under the Nguyen dynasty. And they are locked in this intense geopolitical struggle for control over the lands that lay between them. And this is where you can really see how their ambitions clashed head-on. Both empires saw Cambodia and Laos not just as, buffer zones, but as absolutely essential pieces of their sphere of influence. For both of them, controlling these smaller kingdoms was a massive deal for their national prestige and, of course, their security. And look, this relationship, it wasn't just competitive, it was downright toxic. After Siam crushed a rebellion in Laos, Vietnamese diplomats sent to negotiate were just slaughtered by a Siamese general. And when Vietnam complained, Siam basically said that the 50 diplomats they killed were nothing compared to the hundreds of Siamese soldiers the rebels had killed. So yeah, diplomatic ties were completely severed.
And then, out of nowhere, the perfect excuse just falls right into Siam's lap. A really powerful official deep in southern Vietnam, a guy named Le Van Huy, starts a rebellion right in Saigon. He knew he couldn't win by himself, so he sends this urgent message to Bangkok, basically begging for military help. For Siam's king Rama III, this was it. This was the moment he had been waiting for. With Vietnam completely distracted by a rebellion, he saw a golden opportunity, not just to help some ally, but to launch a decisive, overwhelming invasion that could cripple his rival once and for all.
So, November 1833 rolls around, and Siam unleashes this absolutely massive plan, a multi-front attack designed to hit Vietnam from every possible direction and just break the country apart.
I mean, just look at the sheer scale and complexity of this thing. It's staggering. This wasn't just some border raid, This was a full-blown strategy to overwhelm Vietnam by land and by sea, striking from the north and the south all at the same time. And you know what? At first, it worked. It worked brilliantly. The Navy grabbed key coastal cities with almost no effort. The main army marched right into Cambodia, took the capital, Phnom Penh, and sent the pro-Vietnamese Cambodian king running for his life. It really seemed like Saigon was next.
The victorious Siamese forces all came together for that final push up the river to Saigon. But it was right here at Vam Nao that everything that could possibly go wrong did. So what happened? A complete and total collapse of coordination. The land army, led by this fierce general, Bon Decha, they charge the Vietnamese forts and get absolutely shredded by a storm of cannon fire. They're looking over at the Navy, desperate for backup, but nothing. The fleet is in total chaos. Its commanders are frozen with fear, refusing to join the fight. Left completely exposed and unsupported, the land army had no choice but to retreat. And just like that, the invasion was over. Wow. I mean, the defeat was just a profound shock. It forced this humiliating retreat and made both empires completely rethink their strategies for the long war that was definitely going to follow. So Vietnam doesn't waste any time. They move, and they move decisively. Seeing Cambodia as weak and unreliable, Emperor Minh Mong just annexes it outright, turning it into a Vietnamese province. And then he starts this brutal policy of forced assimilation, trying to systematically wipe out Cambodian culture and replace it with Vietnamese customs, language, and government. Meanwhile,
Siam, completely humbled by this defeat, turns inward. As they retreated, they burned everything to the ground, destroying cities and forcibly marching thousands of Cambodians and Vietnamese all the way back to Siam. Then, King Rama III ordered one of the biggest military infrastructure projects in Siamese history, building new forts and a modern navy to defend the kingdom.
And to really hammer home this new focus on defense, Siam took on this massive engineering project. They needed to get troops and supplies to the Eastern Front fast, so they dug the Klong San Sep. Think about that. A 72-kilometer-long canal connecting Bangkok directly to the front lines of any future war with Vietnam. Okay, so King Rama III, he's a smart guy. He realizes, all right, brute force isn't going to work. The direct invasion was a total failure. So he pivots. He pivots to a much smarter, much more patient political strategy. The game completely changed. The goal wasn't conquest anymore, it was all about influence. It was a brilliant move, really. Instead of sending Siamese armies to fight Vietnamese ones, Siam would now back a Cambodian to fight for Cambodia. The new plan was to win the hearts and minds of the Khmer people, who were already suffering under really harsh Vietnamese rule. And this is the key takeaway right here. That disastrous military campaign, it wasn't the end of the war, not by a long shot. It was just the end of the beginning. By backing Prince Ang Duong, Siam completely changed the conflict from a direct clash of empires into a proxy fight for the very soul of Cambodia.
So that massive invasion in 1833, it was a spectacular failure, for sure. But what it did was set the stage for a totally new kind of struggle, one that would last for another decade. The war for Cambodia would now be fought not just with cannons and shits, but with politics, with propaganda, and with the promise of liberation.